This is Andy Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I'm delighted to be joined by Tommy Boom Boom Coyle over Zoom. Tommy, first and foremost, how are you doing?
I'm very well. I'm good. I won't say enjoying the retired life because I miss it goddamn every single minute of every single day, but I'm content. I'm happy.
That's good to hear, mate. Well, obviously, we'll come on to retirement and retired life in a little while. But as we are currently in lockdown, I've asked everybody who I've interviewed so far, how have you found it yourself?
Do you know what? I try and look at every situation like a glass half full as opposed to half empty. And, it's not ideal. All my businesses have been closed down because, I'm in the health and wellbeing industry and the gyms, are not allowed to be open. But on the flip side, I've spent so much time at home with my 3 children, my wife, and it's been good. Hello.
Yeah, you're back, man.
Technical issues. Yeah, I was just saying, I don't know where we got up to then before we got cut off, but just to say, glass half full as opposed to half empty. I spent tons of time with my children, my wife, and it's been real nice.
I was going to say, like, I can imagine kind of lockdowns maybe changed and altered your retirement plans quite significantly because you may not have been able to do the things you'd have liked to have done.
Yeah, for sure. I'd like to have gone on holiday because I've not got to be in the training camp and I've got, more time. But it's allowed me to really think and allow me to look at my business, in more in depth. And we've had a good 3-4 months of innovating. We've actually just opened 3 outdoor gyms. So, towards the back end of lockdown, I've managed to get busy again. And I've innovated and I think we've elevated the business during lockdown, ready to rock and roll when the government give us the nod.
You obviously, you have had a successful boxing career, which I'm sure in itself would have given you the chance to set yourself up financially away from what you're doing on the side. But one thing that is always told to me about you, and one thing Jamie's always pushing, is you've been very clever with your money to set up these businesses. How important has it been for yourself to set up what you have done to keep a kind of a stream of revenue coming in for your household?
It's extremely important. Everybody has a shelf life, and it's extremely important for any young fighters that might be watching this Zoom call today to think about what's next, the next chapter, a plan B. And I was very mindful that I wasn't the best fighter in the world. I was entertaining, yeah, but I wasn't the greatest fighter in the world. And the way I fought had a shelf life, and I needed something to fall back on when I retired because I was always going to have to retire probably much earlier than other fighters or some fighters may have to because of my style of fighting. And I just knew that I'd built up Hull's a very small place, and because I'd done reasonably well, I managed to build a brand. And I knew that if I built a business while I was still on the shelf and I could kind of juggle both of them together, the business would get the acceleration whilst I was fighting because of the brand enhancement and the association, and more kids would want to walk through the gym doors because I always seemed to be training there, and other fighters and other sparring partners was coming. So they kind of bounced off one another. And albeit, when I retired, I'd built over the last 5 years a good business for me to, jump on board with when I retired. Because, when you retire, it's such a tough call to make. And I probably knew a couple of months after my last fight with Chris Algieri that I would have to retire. But, it took me 8 months to announce because it was a roller coaster of emotions coming to that decision. And I like to think of it like this. If you stay still when you retire, it's going to hit you like a ton of bricks. It's like, say, for instance, if you're stood still and a car hits you, it's going to hit twice as much. But if you can keep moving, it kind of ricochets off you. So because I've kept moving and working hard on my business, it hasn't probably hurt as much as it may have done if I hadn't have had these businesses in place.
Now, Tommy, obviously, we've spoken about your businesses there, but the main reason behind us doing this interview is kind of to look back on some of the more joyful and maybe less joyful moments of your boxing career, but certainly moments that stick out. So take me back to the beginning and start off with kind of your route into the sport, Tommy. How did you first get involved in boxing?
My uncle Carl Heath, he was a bit of a tearaway kid, turned his life around through boxing and football, through sport basically. And he took me, I think he realised I was a kid that had plenty of negative energy around the house and I needed some sort of stimulant, some sort of discipline. And he took me down, well, no, he actually bought me, you remember Prince Nazim, the License to Thrill VHS? Well, he bought me one of those. And I remember watching and thinking, this is what I want to do, man. I want to fight. I think I wanted to do the flip into the ring, but I never quite mastered that. And took me down to the gym, and I just fell in love with the sport. The first time I ever sparred, I got put on my backside. I actually got knocked out of the ring, in fact. But I just loved it. I don't know, it was... I've tried explaining boxing to some people how it affected me. And do you know, like some people get stressed at work and they come home and they have a glass of wine. Well, boxing was like my glass of wine. You know, a fight, having a fight with that physicality, it just chilled me out. And that's what it did to me as a kid, and I fell in love with it, and I never looked back.
Tommy, you mentioned Prince Nassim Hamid in the VHS video that you was given. Who was your boxing idols when you was growing up? Who were the guys who you kind of looked at and thought, I want to be like them? I know you can say Naz was one of them, but was there anyone else?
My idol growing up was my dad. Sorry, my boys just walked through. RJ, I'm just doing a video call, and you can have 3 ice pops, yeah. Yeah. Your friends. Come through then and grab one, but be quiet. So, yeah, these are the kind of lockdown issues you have when you're trying to still work from home. Kids coming through, can I have one more ice pop? I think they've gathered as well that I will say yes when I'm on a call to anything. But my dad was my hero growing up. I don't know, I think it was, I always wanted to impress him. And because my dad was quite a tough guy or a tough parent, I thought being a tough guy would impress him and get his attention. But Mike Tyson, for me, one of the most ferocious and devastating punches I've seen. And I loved the entertainment he brought to the ring. And yeah, he was probably my favourite fighter. But as I got older, I fell in love with Vittorio Gatti and Mickey Ward. And those types of throwback fighters weren't necessarily, well, you say necessarily one of the best. Vittorio Gatti was a fantastic boxer, but he got drew into a fight. And I'm not saying I'm a fantastic boxer, but when I chose to box, I can box probably more than I get credit for, but I just love a fight. And I think that's why I relate to those types of guys.
You mentioned Tyson there, and obviously there's been a lot coming out recently about himself, you know, Evander Holyfield, James Toney, you know, a few of those other, you know, the legends of the sport are considering making a comeback. What's been your thoughts, Tommy, when you have seen that?
Listen, it's not, how can I put this? If it was any other fighter, I would say, you know, you have nothing to prove, you know, stay retired, you know, keep that legacy intact. But the thing about Mike Tyson is, and I spent 4 days with Mike Tyson in 1999 when he was training for the Julius Francis fight in the Grosvenor House Hotel in London when Frank Warren was taking care of him. And I spent 1 full day with him in 2006 in Doncaster at Andy Booker's house. The thing about Mike Tyson is this. Mike Tyson has a lot of demons. And I think he struggles with life. This is just what I get from his podcasts. He's up, he's down, he's not consistent in what he says. and how he feels. And I think the only consistent thing in his life is boxing, or has been boxing. So maybe boxing at this crazy age could be Mike's savior. So if that's the case, sorry.
That's all right.
You lost me. There you
I'll
go.
be back
If
there.
that's the case, then you know what? I think Mike Tyson's the kind of guy that is happier fighting than he is living life. So if that's what makes him happy, then you know what? Good luck, Mike. I don't want to see him fight again because, you know, I want to remember Mike Tyson as that ferocious, you know, devastating puncher which he once was. And I don't, you know, nobody can do what they did at 50, what they did at 20. I can't do what I did at 20, and I'm only 30. So I'd like, you know, just to think it was all social media and advertising or whatever. And I wouldn't like to see him back in the ring, but I would like to see Mike Tyson happy because he was a big inspiration of mine.
You mentioned 2 separate periods in your life where you had kind of one-on-one time with Mike. What was he like one-on-one?
So the second time I went to see him, I took my file from 1999, and he was like, wow, geez. He went, I remember this. He said, I was an animal. He said, look at me. Like, it was only 5 years, 6 years later, but he was reflecting back on himself back then and how ferocious and how his mentality was. And he asked me about school, and I was expelled from school that year I went to see him, 2000, no, it was 2005. It was the year before the ABAs. And he said, how are you in school, son? And I couldn't wait to tell him that I'd been expelled. I thought it was cool. I was wanting to show off and say, how I've been expelled like you was, Mike. You know, I'm like you. I'm a tough guy. And he went, listen, son, he went, it's not smart to be tough. It's tough to be smart. And I never, ever forgot it. And basically what he was saying is, it wasn't smart to be a tough guy, go out there fighting, you know, showing, you know, 30 people in your class how tough you are. It's actually tough to be smart and think, you know, I'm not going to do this because I'm going to get expelled from school. And if I get expelled from school, that's going to affect my grades. And my grades are going to affect my job. And my job's going to affect my career, which might affect my family one day. So, you know, there was sound advice, what I took on board at a very young age. And I tell a lot of the kids that I work with now, you know, it's not smart to be tough, it's tough to be smart. I do, you know, countless community work, which at the minute we can't do, and it's very sad.
Just to move away from that period as well, back to yourself, Tommy. Amateur days. Talk to me about your amateur career. How did you find the amateur setup?
The amateur setup one for me, I had I wasn't the greatest technician. I referred to amateur boxing. It just didn't do anything for me. It was, you know, point scoring points. And I just wanted to get in there and have a fight. And my style wasn't really suited to amateur boxing. Sorry. Yes, son. So, yeah, my amateur career, it was good. I won the ABAs. I won the NABCs. I fought for England. But I just loved having a fight, and I knew that, you know, doing it for a living in front of a crowd that would shout your name and, you know, potentially get paid as well was what I wanted to do, because I had no GCSEs. It was make it in boxing, or try and make it in boxing, or probably work on my dad's fruit and veg stall selling fruit and veg. And can I just add, there's nothing wrong with that. My dad's fruit and veg stall provided a fantastic living for me and my 3 brothers as a young kid, and I'm very, very proud of my dad's achievement as a father.
When you did make that transition from amateur to professional, how did you find it then?
I cried after my first professional, emotional, nervous. I built, you know, this guy up in my head who was just journeying with Christian Lay to be a monster. But it was an amazing emotion. It was an amazing experience, and I did transition very well. It was what I knew, and that was entertaining.
Did you feel a pressure on the early stages of your career? You mentioned, you cried, for that late fight. Did you feel the pressure as you progressed and you continued to pick up victories?
I never felt the pressure. I got nervous, not because about getting hurt or anything like that. That's never bothered me. But just about winning. I'm a winner. I want to win it at all costs. I refuse to lose. I think that's why I've always found a way to get up when I have been put down. I was just so scared of losing. Yeah, but never really a pressure because I never went into a fight without being in fantastic condition. If I got beat, I just got beat because I wasn't good enough. And that's acceptable. To get beat because you're not good enough is acceptable. But to get beat because you've not prepared or you've not put in the hard work or made the sacrifices, then that's not acceptable.
Unfortunately, Tommy, there's a few defeats I did just want to kind of reflect on before we come to the brighter moments and the wins of your career. Take me back to your first defeat to Gary Sykes. What was that like? How did you feel when you'd lost that fight?
You know what? I'm just going to put this phone on charge. You know what? When I got beat to Gary Sykes, I had a terrible week lead up to the fight. I think I'd left a little bit too much weight, and still making the weight. Making weight.
Lost you, Tommy. I can't hear you at a minute, Tommy.
One more. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, mate. Yeah, well, I'll just ask that again. So I'm just obviously pick that back up there. You just had to put your phone on charge. Unfortunately, we do have to touch on some of those lesser enjoyable moments of your career, some of the defeats before we do come on to the victories that you was able to have. Take me back to your first defeat to Gary Sykes. What was kind of that experience like? How did you feel after it?
It was a tough pill to swallow, as is any loss. But it was only a 3-round fight because it was in the prize fighter. So it wasn't, a full fight. It wasn't a landslide. It could have gone either way. I think, Ricky Hatton on the scorecards had said that I'd nicked the fight. But, in the build-up, I knew it wasn't a true reflection on my ability or my performance because I struggled with the weight in the lead-up because it was a short notice job. And I think struggling to make the weight had obviously reduced my immune system, and I picked up a little flu on the build-up. So I didn't feel 100% going into the fight. But you know what? As a professional, you're never 100% going into the fight. I don't know many fighters what are 100% going into the fight. So it was just one of those things. I had a job to do. I had to deal with it, and I went in there and I got beat. But I'd prepared great for it. I just got beat on the night, and as I just mentioned there, I'm okay with that if I've done everything that was asked of me in camp.
So a couple of fights after that, you faced Darren Matthews, where you unfortunately came up short in that bout. Again, Tommy, just kind of reflect on it for me.
Yeah, it was tough losing to Derry because I'd boxed a great fight. But in hindsight, it was the best thing what could have ever happened to me because it was my first fight under Jamie Moore. So there was a new relationship there. We was learning together. We was learning a lot about each other. And what the Darren Matthews fight did for me was it kind of announced me to the Sky TV boxing fans. I put in a great performance, but I suffered a devastating knockout, which was a hell of a shot. And it kind of prevented me from going into major fights immediately. It gave me the platform to stay on Sky and stay in, good fights, learning fights. But it didn't, send me into a fight as a Commonwealth champion, probably fighting the best in the division. So it held me back, and it allowed me some time to, bond with Jamie and Nigel and become a better all-round fighter.
We will touch on. Sorry, mate, carry on.
No, I think it's just a slight delayed response. But yeah, just delayed me from and give me that time to learn.
We will touch on your special relationship with obviously Jamie and Nigel in a little while, but just to stick with your career, the final defeat up until Algeria that I wanted to touch on was the Luke Campbell fight. You know, two lads from Hull. I can imagine the kind of a rivalry to show you as the best around the city back then. What was it like heading into that Campbell fight?
Oh, it was amazing. It was the best. Like, the Hull's never really had a rivalry like that. You know, Warren Buffett. I've been watching his documentary. Michael Buffer. Michael Buffer came to Hull. Like, who on earth would have thought Michael Buffer would come to Hull? You know, it was just amazing. Like, we kind of, we divided the city, though. And I think that's why, you know, dealing with the defeat was so tough for me, because we had divided the city. There had to be a winner. There had to be a loser. You know, one lad happened to be from the west of the city. One lad happened to be from the east of the city. And, you know, on that occasion, I was the loser. So walking around the town after the fight was tough. You know, although I gave it my best, and I was just beaten by a much better fighter technically in Luke, who's gone on to do great things, and I think will continue to go on to do great things. But it was tough. It was real tough. And my son had just been born, Archie, who's been getting the ice pops in there. And he'd just been born. And I didn't really want to be around too much. You know, I just wanted to escape. Went away with lads and few lads' holidays. And for the first 6 months of my boy Archie's life, I wasn't too familiar, and I really regret that, because our bond's unbelievable. We're so close, but you know, it was tough. It was real tough, and without going into it too much, you know, I probably contemplated retiring after that fight, because I'd got back into training. I'd got injured, and my body started to break down. I took the humerus off my elbow. The ligament off my humerus in my elbow. And it was just a dreadful time. And I've not got too many pleasant memories post-fight with Campbell.
We'll obviously move away from those defeats now and on to some more happier times in your career, Tommy. In particular, one fight which I actually watched it back a couple of weeks ago, the Daniel Brazuela fight at the Ice Arena. That is one which I don't think I'll ever forget. Obviously, both of you going down 4 times during the fight. I don't really think there's words that can sum up what about that was Tommy. Just kind of look back on that day and that experience being in the ring with him.
I think growing up, coming up, I used to run on the treadmill at Nuffield Health, and I'd always take my iPad and I'd stick it on the ledge and I'd just watch, you know, old boxing fights. And I always watched the Sorio Gatti and Ward trilogy, and I always used to think, do you know what, I'd love to be involved in a fight like that. And then, you know, it's probably not quite up there with the Ward versus Gatti fight, but it was a hell of a fight. It was a fight where I learned a lot about myself. I had to dig, you know, very deep to win. And it kind of cemented my trademark. And that might have been my downfall, because sometimes I played up to the crowd and I made fights what could have been a lot easier, a whole lot harder. Because I felt like I had this expectation of being a warrior and all the words that get thrown around on social media. I felt like I had to kind of live up to that expectation. But it was a phenomenal fight. I loved every second of it. And I never forget, there was a point in the fight where I got knocked down and I got hit with an unbelievable body shot. And I'm lay there on the canvas and I'm thinking, right. And it's amazing what can go through your head in 10 seconds, you know. It's like so much went through my head and I'm thinking, I've got to get up. Like, if I don't get up here, everything, like all these people will keep ringing me for interviews and taking pictures of me and selfies in town and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, can you sign gloves and send them out? All that's going to stop. And this is all I ever dreamed about as a kid. So get up and you know, wave him on. And as the count got bigger, the crowd got louder. And it was just like an injection of adrenaline that come over me. And I got up, waved him on, and I don't know if you did watch it, I knocked him out simultaneously, like literally seconds after him knocking me out, I knocked him down. So it was a mad fight. It was a good fight. It's one I'll keep in the locker and show the kids when they're older. And yeah, them days are long gone now.
I've definitely watched it, Tommy. Like I say, it was on. I saw Sky put it out a couple of weeks ago, so I watched it back on there.
Right.
And another thought I wanted to reflect on you, Tommy, was the victory over Michael Katsidis. For you to be victorious in that fight, how much did that mean to you?
Unbelievable. Like, I was scared to death for 12 weeks training for that fight. I remember Eddie Hearn offering me the fight at his barbecue in Essex, at his house, where the new fight camp's going to be. And I was like, wow, the same dude what, you know, fought Manuel Marquez and beat, you know, Kevin Mitchell and been in there with Burns. So I was like, you know, yeah, I want that fight. So we took it. And if I'm totally honest, I don't know if I ever believed I'd win. I was so scared of losing. But I trained like a beast. I trained so hard. And I think that's probably one of the best training camps I've had in terms of listening. However, 3 weeks before the fight, I fractured my ribs. So, I mean, going into that fight, I was in a mess 3 weeks before. I couldn't spar. I was in a lot of pain. And without going into too much detail, I was in a lot of pain, which was relieved before the fight because I'd put all numbing gels on my body, like the Nurofen gel. So I know you can't put ointments on your body like Vaseline or whatever, but I'd rubbed in a serious amounts of Nurofen gel to my ribs because I'd obviously fractured them 3 weeks to the fight. And the thing was, when we got weighed in and we went face to face, I don't know if he was referring to the body shots that I'd gone down from before to Daniel Buzuela, or he had inside information that I'd broken my ribs. But he kind of tapped my ribs and he went, "See you tomorrow night." And I was like, shit, this kid knows that I've got broken ribs. So to knock him out in round 2 was, although it was amazing, it was like a relief. It was a sigh of relief that the fight was over, I'd won, and I'd not had to, you know, endure these broken ribs being smashed to bits by the Brit Basher.
Those little mental games that boxers can have, and you mentioned it there with Michael and the little tap on your ribs he gave you. How key can they be in the build-up to fights? In particular, when you look at, you look now, Tyson Fury is considered one of the best when it comes to your kind of mind games and that. How key can those little things be in the build-up to a fight?
Well, it's about knowing your opponent and knowing whether, knowing what buttons to press. I'm quite a resilient guy, to be fair, so it didn't have too much. There was no way I would never, ever contemplate putting out the fight. I'd have gone in there with broken hands, broken ribs, because this is not my style. I'm going in there. I've committed to a fight. The other guys prepared for it. I'm always going to turn up. So it didn't really have an effect, but I can see how it may have done. Some people which aren't as mentally. My best attribute has been my mental strength. My best attribute, it's made up for the lack of probably ability I've actually had. But they can play a huge part, and Tyson Fury's a great example of it.
Moving on and fast forwarding with your career, I want to go into that kind of the little run you went on before you fought Chris Algieri, and another fight being against Sean Dodds, because I remember being at the press conference and neither of you wanted to say anything about each other in a negative way. You were both just so respectful of each other. Something that we don't kind of see too much in boxing these days. What was it like going into a fight, having such a respect for the other person?
Well, at the end of the day, no matter how much you like somebody, when that bell rings, the name of the game is to inflict as much pain on that other guy as possible, and get rid of him as quickly as you possibly can. So I knew that will always be, my first instinct. But at the same time, I understand some fights have got to be sold, but that fight didn't need to be sold. It wasn't top of the bill. It was always going to be a good fight because the styles was always going to clash. And he's a good guy. I respect him as a person. I respect him as a fighter, where he's been, where he's come from, what he's gone through, what he's done. And I just thought, show him the respect I've got and he deserves. Get in there and, let the best man win. But it was funny because I took that fight at 9 stone 9 and I'd not fought at 9 stone 9 since the Campbell fight. So we're actually releasing a documentary on this, but the reason I was late to the weigh-in is because I was so overweight. I really screwed the weight up. Not screwed it up. I'd been disciplined, but making 9 stone 9 was not possible for me anymore. But I made it because I knew that opportunities weren't going to knock too many more times. I was, at the back end of my career, and it was my only real opportunity of winning a major, Commonwealth title. So I decided to take the fight at 9-9. But I remember Masha rang me about 2:30 because I still wasn't there. The weigh was at 2, and he was like, "Where are you, lad?" I was like, "I'm on my way. We got lost." But I'd been sweating my balls off trying to make the weight. And he's like, "Oh, you're not struggling, are you, la?" And truth be known, I struggled to make the weight. But it was last chance saloon for me. And it was obviously the best victory of my career because it went on to set up, 2 trips to America, which I sit now very often and just think about and would do anything to go back and live them moments again.
We'll come to the final trip to America and what happened to be your final bout of your career now, Tommy, against Chris Algieri. I remember seeing you on the Monday at the kind of the welcoming drinks, well, not drinks for you, but drinks for everybody else in attendance.
I remember it, yeah.
Yeah. What was kind of the experience like? A lad from Hull, you just love to fight. You never really set out any goals at the beginning of your career to end up being on the biggest card of the year. What ended up being one of the biggest shocks in boxing for a number of years when Ruiz stopped AJ. What was that entire experience and that week or two like for you?
It's just phenomenal in every single way. Like being over there with people I love and care about, training at all these gyms you see on the TV and you follow on Instagram. And just like waking up and, going for a Starbucks on Times Square and thinking, I'm out here working. Like, it was just mad. And I get goosebumps now speaking about it. It's the best thing I've ever done in my life. And I once spent a couple of nights in a police station called Queen's Gardens, and I remember thinking, I've gone from Queen's Gardens to Madison Square Gardens, and it was a special trip and experience. I'm so lucky and so blessed, but at the same time, I worked damn hard. I worked so hard. And when some people would have quit, I stayed on, I stayed in. And I try and tell every young kid that's got a dream that if they work hard, they make sacrifices and they persevere in times of adversity, like success is eventually inevitable. And that's all I did. The law of average says if you never quit and you refuse to lose and you can just keep going no matter what shit comes your way, then the law of average is eventually you're going to get lucky. And I got lucky. And the law of averages served up a treat.
Let's obviously touch on the fight now. And unfortunately, you wasn't successful. Chris stopping you after Jamie stopping the fight in your corner, throwing in the towel. But what was that? What I remember at the time, you was gutted and you was devastated that Jamie decided to pull you out of the fight. I know since then you've reflected, you said it was a right move, but in the moment, what was going through your mind?
Well, yeah, I've always entered the ring thinking, I will, die for this. As extreme as that may be, that was my mentality. I never ever wanted stopping. I wanted to go out on my shield. But you know what? It was the best call Jamie's ever made. He saved me from my children, and at the time, and I didn't want to be stopped, but I'd been struggling for the last 6 months with my eyesight, with my eyes. I was getting a lot of double vision, and I'd mentioned it a few times, but I'd never said it was an issue. And I think Jamie had, what I'd said on several occasions had lodged with Jamie. And I made the mistake. It's not a mistake, but I'd come back to the corner and said, Jay, I've got double vision again. And that was enough. That was all Jamie needed to hear from me. And, there's more to life than boxing. 3 beautiful children that need me, a wife that needs me. And I want to see them grow up. I don't want to lose my eyesight. I want to see them change and evolve and become successful and be good citizens. So, although it was another tough pill to swallow, it was the best call for my life. I was always mindful that I wanted to get out of the game with all my faculties intact. And Jamie has allowed me to do that. I've got out. I've got all my faculties intact. I can stay sharp in the boardroom, in the classroom, and stay sharp at home with the kids. So it was a great call.
You mentioned to me at the beginning of the interview that a couple months after that Algeria fight, you kind of knew that you was going to retire, but it took you an extra 6, 7, 8 months until you made the official announcement. What was kind of your mindset during that period? I know you wouldn't have wanted to go out on the loss, but at the same time, you couldn't have asked for kind of a better occasion to have been a part of for your own career. What was your mindset through that period when you was considering maybe having one more bout?
I wasn't in a good place. Thankfully, I'm coming out of that dark place now. And again, that's thanks to Jamie Moore and being there, to call, to cry to on the phone. But I'm just writing my autobiography at the moment. And the first chapter is called Something in My Eye. And it's a story about being sat. I won't spoil the chapter, but it's a story about being sat in my favourite cafe in Hull. And I just burst out crying. And I knew that it was over. I'd received some, news and advice from the doctors. And I just broke down. And the first thing I did was call Jamie. And he talked me through it. He helped me through it. Told me about how he felt when he could come to terms with the fact that he was going to have to retire. And, although I knew there and then that I had to retire, I didn't announce it until 8 months later because I had about 4 or 5 comebacks in my head, in that time frame. I was going to get my eyes fixed. I was going to have the operation. I was going to, get back trained. I was going to have a comeback fight, or I was going to, have one last dance in Hull, so to speak. And I thought about my children, if I'm honest. I thought, how selfish would it be of me to, risk my life for my health when I've got 3 children what need me more. They don't care whether I'm a fighter or, they love me just for being their dad. I'm bringing lollipops in from work on the night. So it was tough, mate. It's the toughest thing I've ever had to do in my life. But, my wife was amazing. She supported me. All the lads in the gym rallied round me, Jamie and Nige, which is brilliant. Sad thing as well, some people went missing. When people think you're out or you're down, if they don't love you and they love what you bring to the table or you bring to their life, they go missing when it's no longer there. And there was certain people what went missing because deep down they probably didn't care about me. But the ones that matter, they're still here. And as we said at the start of the interview, Jamie Moore drove 150 miles the other night on a rainy Wednesday night to drop me a retirement present off. He knows how much of a huge Rocky fan I am. And, I didn't even know. I just went to the door and there he is, stood with his, Ring magazine belt and a signed book from Sylvester Stallone. And, I don't bring anything to Jamie's life anymore. I can't do anything for Jamie at all. But he still cares. He's still there. He still rings me. He still checks in, still invites me to the gym. I'm going running with them all tomorrow in Manchester. That shows how a good person he is and how much of a good person Nigel is and the lads in the gym. And that's what matters. Everybody's going to have to retire one day. It's about retiring at the right time and getting out of all your faculties intact so you can continue to do good things. And I'm just going to focus now on my children, my family, and the next generation of young fighters, young citizens in my community, which has supported me not just in victory but in defeat as well, have stayed loyal to me. I've got tremendous support here in Hull. Yeah.
Tommy, I obviously haven't had, well, not had the chance, but I just haven't brought it up yet. Your special relationship with Jamie, and obviously you've mentioned Nigel as well. Just talk to me about it. Why is it that you feel that yourself, Jamie, and Nigel get on so well, and why do you have such a special relationship that's evident for everybody to see over social media, if there's to see you all in person?
Because they care, and they get me. The reason why they're good leaders, Nigel and Jamie, is because they know their student. And Jamie and Nigel, I hate being away from my home. I hate being away from my dad and my mum, and I hate being away from my kids and the wife. And I don't like staying over in Manchester. And they tried drilling it into me for, the best part of a couple of years when we first started working together. I needed to stay down there in a hotel and I needed to, be getting 8 hours sleep and, under, strict rules. But I was driving home in the middle of the night, getting in bed with, the kids and the missus for a few hours and driving back to Manchester just so I could get to see them. And they understood that when I'm happy, I'm a much better fighter. So they give me the leeway I needed to be happy, and that made me a better fighter. And Jamie's not a boxing trainer, he's a life coach. And there was times before I had children and all the rest of it when, I was maybe not getting to me, but maybe I started to get a little bit carried away with myself. And he would just tell me straight, you're being a dick. Stop being a dick. And because he said that to me, it was like, wow, my mate thinks I'm being a dick. And he always had a way of bringing me back down to earth or keeping me grounded. And I think because he's been through it and retired and he's content, and he's a great family man. And if I could be like anybody when I retired, now I am retired, I want to be like Jamie. I really would. He's content. He knows about the higher purpose for life and doing good for nothing in return. He knows about giving is far better than receiving. And we're just in sync, man. He's the best.
Tommy, another person I want to get your thoughts on a relationship you have is with Eddie Hearn. We all continue to see this video of you pulling down his trousers in America. I'm sure it brings a smile to the face of many whenever they see it. But what's Eddie like to not just work with, but on a personal level? Because we all hear stories about how he treats his fighters and the brilliant relationships he has across the board. What was he like with you?
Eddie Hearn is a good man, let me tell you. He's a great businessman. He's a better talker. He's a great salesman. If he ever needed a job, I'd gladly give him one on the fruit stall. He's a good guy. He gave me so many opportunities. He gave me many more opportunities than my ability should have allowed me. But I was entertaining and he saw value in that. And yeah, I owe him a real lot. And I'm so happy he didn't sack me after I pulled his kegs down. Because if he had sacked me, I'd have never got to Madison Square Garden. Listen, people, slag Eddie and say, oh, he's this, he's that. But I can honestly tell you he's a fair man. He pays his fighters. He pays as well. He pays on time. There's many people out there which say they're getting something and they never turns up. I've never had an issue. Do you know what? I used to sell that many tickets. He used to tell me to pay myself. So I've got a whole lot of respect for Eddie, and I thank him so much for the opportunities he's gave me. He's enhanced my life. He's enhanced, thousands of other kids' lives in this city where I live because of him enhancing mine. So, I've continued to send the elevator back down for the next generation because he sent it back down for me.
Tommy, how nervous were you when you pulled down his kegs?
Do you know what? I wasn't actually that nervous because I was probably in a place back then where I just thought I was just about to fight in Boston. I always knew retirement was just around the corner. So I thought, oh, fuck it. Like, if I pull his kick down and I don't fight for him again, I'm in Boston, man. I'm in America. I've fought in America. If this is the last one, so be it. This is the last one. But it probably the best thing ever because it went viral. And he had the big ass. Like, he had no kegs on. And his ass just completely took over the camera. But he took it so well. And that just goes to show, if he was a serious guy and he took himself real serious, like some people say he does, he'd have spiced dummy out over that. He didn't. He took it on the chin. And fair play to him. We got Frank Smith as well, in front of Freddie Roach, and Freddie Roach burst out laughing. We got everybody. We got Nigel Travis on the underground subway, called it Underground Underpants. We was burning everybody in the hotel with a hot teaspoon on the backs of their necks and their arms and them running off. We just had a laugh, like the past 3 years of my life has just been fun. Like, just being a laugh. It's just been a banter. And the boxing was just a nice addition.
Tommy, just to move away from yourself, I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on a few other things in the boxing world. And just to stick with the Jamie Moore gym, there's obviously a great deal and a depth of fighters there. First and foremost, so we saw Dave Allen recently link up with Jamie. What are your thoughts on their partnership, or their new partnership, I should say?
I don't know Dave too well, but I know he's got a ton of potential. Because I've seen him in action. And I don't think he's fulfilled his potential yet either. And I genuinely think Jamie Moore's the man to unlock it. And not just Jamie Moore and Nigel, but the gym too. Because the gym's like a theme park. The gym's like a playground. And it's fun. It's not like going to the gym. It's not like going training. I'll be honest with you right now. I've contemplated unfollowing Jamie and Nigel and Carl and everybody because I just see how good the gym is and I sit there jealous. Like, I sit there thinking and wishing. I said to my wife last night, I said, you know what? I said, I want to unfollow the lads, but I can't do that. I said, because it kills me watching how much fun they're having in the gym and watching them train and stuff. She says, well, just go down there. But yeah, I think Jamie's the man for the job with Dave. both him and Nigel, and they'll get the best out of him because he'll have fun. He'll enjoy it, and it's just a laugh. You know what? Carl Frampton's the bastard, right? I fire extinguished Carl on the first day he come to the gym just for banter. I just thought, you know what? Fuck it. This superstar, yeah, who I love watching fight. But he was doing an interview on television, and the cameraman's there and he's interviewing him, and I thought, I'm just gonna fire extinguish him mid interview. So I went over to him and blasted him. The cameraman was furious, absolutely furious. So Carl said to me the other night, he texted me and he says, Tommy, he says, I dare you to fire extinguish Dave Allen. I says, I don't know about that. I said, Jamie was fucking raging last time I did that. I said, Jamie will go mad. I says, he went, no, he says, I've squared it for Jamie. Jamie says it's fine as long as you clear it up. So I said, all right, no problem. But I text Jamie just to make sure, because Jamie can be an angry bastard when he wants. Like, you don't piss Jamie off. Like, him and Martin Murray are two people you do not piss off. And I text him and I said, Jay, you said it's all right for me to fire extinguish Carl Allen. And he went, have I said it's all right for you to fire extinguish Dave Allen? He said he's barely been in the gym a week. He says, don't you go fucking this up. He says, and it makes a mess everywhere. He says, I'll tell that Carl Frampton. So the gym was just a big joke, honestly.
I actually did an interview with Stephen Ward probably about 3 weeks ago. And Stephen said that there's an initiation that fighters have to do, something involving a duck, I believe it was. Can you fill us in on that, Tommy? Can you tell us what the initiation is?
So I had to chase a duck. No, hang on. What do you mean? I might be getting this confused. I had to once chase a chicken in the gym, and they told me that they couldn't get any chickens, so they'd got a swan, and I'm scared of swans. So, but it was all a big joke. And anyways, when I turned up, there was a chicken. But the initiation, I thought, was singing. You had to do a song for 60 seconds and put it in the group chat within an hour of being put in the group chat, the gym group chat. And if you don't, then you get kicked out of it until you've done your initiation. But the duck one must be a new one. I must have missed this.
Oh, so Stephen never told me what exactly it was. He just said that there was an initiation with a duck. So I was hoping you could fill us in on it.
No, I thought the initiation process was you have to upload a song. I've actually got Dave Allen's and Danny Morell's, and it was quite good, to be fair. It's just a great place to be.
Tommy, another man I do want to get your thoughts on. You briefly mentioned him there, Carl Frampton. Carl obviously is eager to become a freeweight world champion, waiting to see if he can get the Jamel Herring fight over the line. Obviously, we've got travel restrictions with everything that's going on in the world at the minute. But when you see Carl in the gym and you still speak to him now, what are your thoughts if he was to go and face Jamel Herring in the big to become a freeweight world champion?
I'll say this before I start. I owe the Indian summer in my career to Carl Frampton, because I'd sparred with him once, and he said to me, he says, Tommy, he says, you can box like fuck, you know. I says, well, really? He says, yeah. He says, I didn't think you could box like that. He said, why don't you do that in a fight instead? I says, yeah, you know. I said, I might try boxing. Like, and he gave me this great confidence, and I went into the Mashadod fight boxing, and I ended up winning. And we've become real good mates. We've become real close. We speak, most weeks. He's become a good friend, and I value his friendship a lot. I think Carl will become a freeweight world champion simply because of what I just spoke about. How much fun he has in the gym. Carl used to hate training. He told me that, and I think that was because of the people he trained with. And he had all these leeches and, rats around him. He's in a good place now. He's in a gym with people what love him, what care about him. And, I think because he's having so much fun and enjoying his boxing. Carl's a freak. His boxing IQ's a joke, honestly. And I honestly believe he'll beat that Jamal Herring. I do. I think he'll go on to be a three-weight world champion. And I'd love to see him then retire at the top, go out, as a world champion like he rightly deserves to.
I know there's a number of guys in the gym who we could touch on, but unfortunately, Tommy, if I was to, I think we would be here for a lot longer than what we both thought. But the final man in the gym I wanted to get your thoughts on is Martin Murray. Martin said by his own admission he's possibly got a couple more fights in him before he hangs up his gloves himself. What are your thoughts on Martin's career and his kind of gradual process and move towards what will be retirement?
You know what? Martin Murray, what a good man. Like, he loves his kids and his wife to death. And I love that. So first and foremost, he is like family man goals. Like, you want to be a family man, he's the man to look at. And in terms of his career, he's been in there with them all. Should have won a world title in my opinion. He's been there with Golovkin, Martinez, like, what a career he's had, and to still, have the ambition to continue fighting at his age is fantastic. Martin Murray's a scary dude, by the way. A very, very scary dude. I thought he was going to fill me in once in Belfast. I think the lad set me up and told me that his room was Nigel Travis's room, and I had a bucket of water what I was going to throw over Nigel Travis. But when I knocked on the door, Martin Murray answered, but I'd already threw the bucket of water. And I absolutely drenched him, and he lost his shit. Like, he says, "You fucked it now, Tommy, lad." And I thought, I'm getting filled in today.
Tommy, just to move away from the gym, a few more things or a few more fights I just want to get your thoughts on before I do leave you to enjoy the rest of your day. Obviously, you mentioned Eddie Hearn's Matchroom shows that are going to be put on in the back garden of Matchroom HQ. What are your thoughts on that proposal, and obviously behind closed door shows returning?
Well, I think it's a great initiative. And, his innovation has been fantastic, thinking outside the box, giving the fight fans what they want, but not just the fight fans, the fighters as well, because to a lot of fighters, this is how they earn a living. If they can't get in the ring, then they can't earn a living. So fair play to him. I think it's a great initiative. And I'm looking forward to the bit of boxing being back on the box. So, I'll be subscribing or tuning in, and I'm excited for it.
Fight which I want to get your thoughts on, Tommy, is obviously last week it came out that Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury had agreed financial terms in principle for a 2-fight deal in 2021. What was your thoughts when you heard the news, Tommy?
I thought it was great business. And I believe, the man who's put it together, Daniel Kinahan, is a very, very good businessman. So, fair play to Daniel for getting that fight over the line, and fair play to the guys for agreeing the fight. The best fighting the best, giving the fans the fights they want to see, which sometimes never get made because of egos or finances.
Final fight I want to get your thoughts on, Tommy, is Dillian Whyte. Dillian's at the minute, he's come out, he's going to take legal action against the WBC for his mandatory position. But away from that, there's been talks about a potential cross-sport clash with Francis Ngannou of the UFC. Would you be interested to see Dillian Whyte versus Francis Ngannou in either the UFC or in boxing?
100%. I'd be interested in seeing Dillian Whyte go bowling, because he always brings drama. I've been on a few cards with Dillian Whyte back in the days of fighting at Hull City Hall when he was just coming through. He fought on the undercard of my fight with Luke Campbell. Like, he should have had a world title or a couple of world title shots by now. I feel sorry for him. he's definitely having his nose pushed out for whatever reason. And he's definitely got the ability to become. I'll tell you a funny story about Dillian White. I was fighting in Manchester one night, and I'd seen him in the hotel, and I said, I want to go pictures. He said, I've just got back. I said, oh yeah. He said, what did you go see? He said, say for instance, I can't remember the film we went to see. I said, oh yeah, that's what we're going to see. He said, oh, he's brilliant. He went, he's the best film ever. But I was on whether to go and see another film. So I went to see it because he recommended it. The next morning, I said, hey, D, I said, that film was shite. He went, yeah, I know it is, isn't it? So I said, you told me it was brilliant. He said, yeah, I know. So he's got good banter.
Tommy, before I do leave you to enjoy the rest of your day, what would you like to say to everyone who tunes in to watch our interview?
Oh, listen, to all the boxing fans out there who have supported me, thanks so much. Like, I never forget the reception I got when I fought at Madison Square Garden, the weigh-in. It's a memory I'll cherish forever. So, yeah, thank you ever so much. And thanks for listening. Thanks to Boxing Social as well for caring and checking in with me, post-retirement. And, yeah, it's nice to talk boxing. I've not been talking boxing for some while now. So it's nice to be still involved.
Tommy, listen, we can 100% do this again in the near future. We certainly won't forget you. I'm sure you've got many, many more stories that everybody would love to hear. It's been a pleasure to catch up with you. I'm appreciative of the time you've given. I know I said we'd be 20 minutes. It's ended up being an hour long. But it's been a pleasure, Tommy. Stay safe. I hope you and your family are well, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you for speaking to Boxing Social.
God bless you, mate. Thank you. All the best. Cheers, Bob.